Hello and welcome to our update here at Revesby Estates and on the farm for what we've been getting up to during October. So the weather during October, we've ended up with 69.3 millimetres of rain, which has been very welcome rain because we are very dry. The land has taken that very well. So yeah, that's helped establish very well the crops what we have been busy drilling. We've had a high in October of 20.7, so that was back at the beginning on the 6th of October. So yeah, it's been quite a warm October, but we have had a low of 1 degree, which was at the very end of October. So that's the coldest we've got down to, and we've had an overall average temperature of actually 11.2. So yeah, it's been a very mild October. We could do with some more cold weathers now, because the crops in a minute, what we're going to see, really do need some cold weather to help fight off disease and pests, what we've had. So during October we have finished our winter wheat, our whole sort of autumn drilling campaign. So all our winter wheat is in. We've lifted our first tranche of sugar beet, then Edward's gone back behind and worked that land and drilled that with winter wheat. So we have got all our planned autumn time drillings in, and they are now all coming up, which is fantastic position to be in after a couple of tough autumns the 2 years before, when we've been struggling with the amount of rainfall what we've had. So yeah, very pleased to see those in the ground. So what I thought I'd do for this video this month is just take a look at some of these crops what we've been establishing during the summer and into now, into the end of October, beginning of November, and just see how they've been establishing and what our sort of plans are to keep them healthy during the winter months. So this first field which I'm stood in now is a crop of winter barley. This is a Syngenta Quantock hybrid barley. This is direct drilled in behind me, so you can see the rows of stubble, wheat stubble from last year. And this is actually perfectly lined up with the barley in between those rows. So let's just take a look. Yeah, really pleasing to actually see it like this, perfectly row of barley. And then, so you got your barley, and then you got last year's stubble, last year's wheat stubble here, breaking down nicely. So here is the actual winter barley. So here we've got it, and we're at a really nice growth stage now. We've got here, you can see, we've got the main plant here, and then at the side we've got the tillers. So we have got two very strong tillers on this plant already. This will continue tillering out during this autumn and then into the spring, so much so it will actually smother this ground. Winter barley is very good. The hybrids, we use them because they smother the ground and then they smother out competition from the likes of blackgrass. So it's a cultural control to help us control against blackgrass. Really nice growth stage where these are. They're not too forward, which is good. We're getting the tillers on them now. So this really is just a case of monitoring them. That's now I've come into one of our winter wheat fields. On the surface it looks identical to what our winter barley just looked like. Again, direct drilled. This was a crop of spring oats last year. Oats come off, straw chopped, and then Edward's gone straight in then with the avatar drill here. So let's take a look. So here we are. It almost looks exactly the same as what the winter barley looked. A little bit more deeper green colour, and here is the wheat, so a little bit more weaker looking than what the barley was. And we will have here about one tiller to get rid of all them plants. So there is the main plant, and then if we peel it away we should get, there it is, we've now got one tiller on the wheat. So yeah, the tillers are on 1 to 1.5 tillers, and again they might sit with about, if we're lucky, 3 tillers coming into the autumn. So the tiller numbers is something which we struggled with in the last couple of years because we've been slow getting going. So to have 2 tillers, potentially 3 tillers going into the winter is really beneficial to this wheat. The more tillers it has, the more rooting it will also put on. it will naturally probably eject some of those tillers as it gets into the spring. However, it won't eject the rooting, so it will keep a big rooting mass into the spring. So if water becomes scarce, nutrition becomes scarce, it'll have more root mass to it to actually absorb that. So this wheat, pretty much like the barley, is set now for the autumn. Yeah, let's just compare this to the actual winter barley. Right, so here I've got a barley plant and a wheat plant. So on the face of it, looking pretty much same as each other. First telltale sign you can tell is the actual seed it's growing out of, by the shape of it. This is below ground to this point here, and this is above ground. So this is what we're seeing. So what actually are the main differences? Well, first of all, the barley plant, as you can see, has got a much thicker leaf. So yeah, sorry, I should say this is the barley and this is the wheat. Much thicker stem on it than what the wheat has at present, and the leaves are much broader, much wider surface area on the barley plant compared to what we actually have on the wheat plant. So that's an easy telltale sign. This time of the year, the barley's more advanced, so we've got these tillers on it. The wheat could have tillers on, but this one hasn't because it was a younger plant, but it won't get them as strong as what the barley does. Another telltale sign is the actual auricles, what we have on the barley. Now, what do we mean by the auricles? My camera's probably not going to be good enough to focus in. Oh, it is. You can see them on here, just running down here. These are the actual auricles, like arms hugging around the stem. Barley has them, whereas a wheat plant does not have them. So where the actual leaf meets the stem, we've got no arms coming around and hugging, which are the auricles, whereas a barley actually does have them just here. So that is a very good telltale sign between the difference between a barley crop and a wheat crop, if you can't tell just by looking at it and its characteristics. Interestingly, on this barley, just whilst I'm here, we have a bit of a disease growing on it. You can see these white specks. This is actually downy mildew, just because it's warm, just because it's quite frothy and advanced. The bit of land where this came from used to be in a dairy farming situation, so it'll have a lot of nitrogen potentially in the ground. So weaker leaf has allowed this mildew in. Not worried about it at this stage because the frost will come and hopefully take care of that for us, and that will disappear. But it's just something to be aware of and look at going into the spring. If this is obviously in the crop already now, if we don't get the right conditions to take care of it naturally in the winter, we might have to look at potentially in the spring. But yeah, it's just a note to self to keep an eye on. So yeah, they're sort of the main differences early on the barleys. What you can tell, obviously, as they develop, you get different differences, and then the ear types are totally different between the two. But in the field, as you look at them, they look very, very similar just as you're passing. It's only when you get closer to them you can actually definitely tell what is what. I'm now in our winter linseed. If you remember, this is our first time growing winter linseed. I think it's around 10 years. Establishing well, growing well, given the conditions. We just don't want to get this too far forward, or else it can get hit by the frost, but it's at a nice growth stage at the moment. So let's take a look. See the rows. This was drilled with our sprinter. Here is the linseed growing nicely, not too high. Want to keep it below 10 centimeters, and it's quite nicely grown away at the moment. So yeah, not a lot more to do to this. Not a lot more to do to the linseed. Just keep an eye on its growth. It might need a fungicide, because we can use that as a growth regulator just to inhibit its growth to keep it low. But absolutely happy at the moment with where this is, and fingers crossed we won't have to interfere with this, and it will be once it starts waking up in the spring when we have to start protecting it. And then our final winter crop, which we've established this year, is our oilseed rape. So the final crop I'm telling you about, but the first actual crop we drilled. So this was drilled back at the beginning of August. So the field I'm actually sat in, a variety called Maverick. This was drilled back in, off memory, somewhere around the 8th of August. At the time of drilling, it was actually raining, and I thought I was going to have to stop actually drilling because it was getting too sticky and wet on the soil. However, it stopped raining, and then it didn't rain for nearly the rest of August. So this actually didn't grow until nearly the beginning of September, till we got some more rains. So although we had that rain at drilling, so you think, yes, we've got the moistures, let's go drill. We can't control the weather. It then stopped raining. It wasn't enough moisture to actually get the seed going. But it looks a cracking crop, all said. So let's take a look. Here it is, a very even plant stand. Down the rows here. So again, drilled with the avatar. So we've got two things growing in here. We've got the oilseed rape, which is down here. In fact, I just pull that plant up. Nice root on it. Very strong plant, very growy going into winter actually to what we normally have, but we're happy to see that. Very little flea beetle damage, a little bit of a lesion on that one there where it's had a bit of larvae in the stem, but there's very little amounts. That's not really going to affect the plant, so very happy. The growing point of the rape is right down in the bottom here. A lot of leaves curled around protecting it, which is what we want to keep the frost off the buds, because actually in the heart of here now will actually be the the flower buds, which will come out in March. But they're already there, already developing. We've got all this green leaf matter which is actually protecting them, so that's perfect. A lot of these bigger leaves will die off in the winter, so this will actually, the canopy will open back up, and that is fine. So all the nutrition what these have sucked in will get taken back down and stored in the plant for usage later. So actually a good cover like this has actually trapped a lot of nutrition out of the soil, which means we won't have to feed it a lot of nitrogen potentially in the spring to get to the final yield of this crop. So the other thing in here is this, which is buckwheat. This is the companion we put in. This is here to deter pests, to deter the flea beetle. Also, it's in here, it's cycling nutrition for us. This is going to die off now. You can start to see it, certainly on this one here. The leaf's going brown and limp. It does not like any cold temperatures. So the 1 degree we had at the end of October is really working into this. If we get some good frost, this will just naturally disappear and leave just a rape for us. So we're not quite done in this crop yet before winter, so the buckwheat will disappear. However, we have got some other weeds within this crop which I am a little bit concerned about. Where I'm stood is not too bad, but we have certain weeds which I think we will need to take out before they get too well established. We've also got in this field, on this land, it grows a lot of, I've just found it, some crane's bill. So here we are, here's the crane's bill. Can be a problem to get out of other crops, so there's a chance in the rape. We've got a chemistry what will take that out, so we want to, don't let this come to any seed, because it can be a problem weed for us on this land. So this is programmed in now for a herbicide to clean the weeds out. Then that'll be it, probably this side of Christmas, and then in the early new year we will come through with, if conditions are right, soil conditions are right, with a blackgrass control, because rape's quite an open canopy. It will open out as we get to that point, lets a lot of light through, and we can get blackgrasses coming at us. So we put a herbicide on to knock that blackgrass back down, and then the rape gets going again in the spring and shades it. But we have to have the right weather conditions. We can't have land drains running, because we don't want to transfer that chemistry down through the soil and out into the waterways. So there's certain conditions we have to make sure are right before we can actually apply that chemistry. So pre-Christmas, one more time through this crop on this particular block of land to clean them weeds up. But yeah, rapes gain tick, looking very well. Quite easy to manage going in. Another problem with rape can be pigeons. Not concerned at the moment with the amount of canopy cover we've got on. It can sustain a bit of damage. We've just got to protect that heart. It's when the leaves have died off during the winter and them hearts are getting more exposed, that's when the pigeons can do damage. So but yeah, all in all, very happy. So yeah, that was a quick look through the winter crops we've established. We've obviously got a lot of spring crops to establish in the springtime, so that's where we are. The only other sort of crops which we didn't look at are our cover crops, which are now starting to get grazed with sheep, but I will save that for our next update. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you there, and we will take a look around our cover crops.